Race cards, form, betting, tipping, bloodstock, greyhound sport and, crucially, red-hot racing news. They all come together on a daily basis to form the Racing Post. And it all takes place here on the 23rd floor of 1 Canada Square, Canary Wharf, East London. This is the front page of the very first copy of the Racing Post from April 1986. Here is how edition 7679 came to life. It's 11:30 AM and at this stage tomorrow's Racing Post is nothing more than blank sheets of paper. But all that starts to change when departmental heads come together and discuss plans for the edition at the crucial morning meeting, chaired by editor Bruce Millington.
Fixture this time of year, there's various.
So at the moment, the lead story on tomorrow's front page will be about the 2010 fixture list, but there is still plenty of time for that to change. A daily feature of the Racing Post, a previews of the day's key races. To do that well, we speak to the trainers that matter, and that involves a whole heap of phone calls.
Hello, is that Mr. Portman? Hello, it's Lewis Courtney from Racing Post. How are you? Yeah, fine, thank you.
Well, it's called the Racing Post, but sports betting is an integral part of the product, and looking after the back of the paper is sports betting editor Phil Aegis. Phil, it's just gone 2:10. At this stage, what goodies have you got in store for tomorrow?
Well, it's already proved to be a much more interesting and exciting day than we thought might have been the case for a regular Wednesday to Thursday, as we call it. You know, since we came this morning, we had two big breaking stories. At the football, we've got the Accrington and Bury players involved in the betting on the match case have been suspended, and there's 4 of those. So that's quite a big story for us. And then also to just come through a minute ago is the news that Kevin Pearson's out the rest of the Ashes series. So that's obviously quite a big cricket story.
And at this stage, which of those two stories takes precedence in terms of what you lead the back with?
Lead the back with, we're just having discussions actually with Bruce Millington, the editor, involving that. We're going to get them both on the back page because of the football story is very big. I mean, we haven't had players suspended for betting on or and against their own team, you know, for years. And but then obviously Pete's the man of the moment, and everybody's interested in that. So they'll both be on the back page. And
at this stage, a few hours before off-stone time, you're happy that things are nicely under control?
Yeah, it's normally the calm before the storm, but it's all coming together reasonably well today, and I'm sure there'll be a few changes here and there to what's on the pages tomorrow to what we think they might be on at the moment, but so yeah, it's all going well.
You crack on. OK, we've seen how Phil is doing on sport. What about Andy Scott's news editor, who's looking after the racing news side of the paper today? Scottsy, 2:15, we saw it earlier on, had a ream of stories to get through in that morning meeting. What's coming off, what's not coming off?
Most of it happily is coming off at the moment. All the fixture list stuff was 3,000 words of it, as was said earlier, was over with the subs nice and early. But the other subjects like Alan McCabe, Carl Burke, there's a good profile on him and a news story. Goodwood and Galway have just had the entries for those, so we're cracking on with that. So yeah, it's shaping up as in the morning meeting, really.
And at this stage, are you sort of happy with how the papers look in terms of you got your front page story, you got your page leads?
Yeah, the fixture list story, the main news one from Howard, is at the moment going to lead the paper. Levy and fixtures and the possibility of a fixture reduction in 2 years' time. But we're waiting obviously on Ryan Moore and King George decision, and that would see and be in the mix for the front page.
And you have probably one of the most stressful jobs on the paper. At this stage, you a happy bunny?
Yeah, there's a lot of blue on the news list, chalked off, which indicates obviously stories that have already gone over. So really, apart from reports that come in obviously about 5 o'clock or so, a couple of briefings and the entries that we're doing now for Goodwood and Galway, quite a lot of it's gone over already. So it's just sort of waiting for them, plus the King George, and that'll be job done.
And crucially, you generally don't get around to eating your lunch till about 4 o'clock. Have you tackled your sandwich yet?
No, the sarnie is in the fridge at the moment. moment. It takes usually 15 minutes minimum to eat. Sometimes it has to be eaten in the corridor to get away from the phone. But no, not eaten yet, but yeah, before the chat at 3 o'clock with the subs, hopefully get a bite.
Don't neglect yourself. Good lad. Mark Blackman, features editor. We've just been speaking to Andy Scutts. While his day is largely governed by things that happen on the day, you, I suppose, can plan more in advance.
Yeah, we can plan a little bit ahead. We like to be a couple of weeks ahead if we can, but obviously there are certain key events coming up, maybe 6 weeks in advance, that we know we're going to have to gear up towards. The King George this week is obviously a very good example of that, and all this week we've sent one of our top writers, Steve Dennis, out on what we're calling the King George road trip. So he's visiting various locations that are significant in terms of this weekend's race, both historically. He's been to see Joe Mercer, he's been to see Toto, who's the oldest surviving winner of the race, that sort of thing. He's also been to Ballymacole Stud. He's talking, for tomorrow's edition, he's talking to the owner of Ask, who we know very little about, but obviously has sprung to prominence with the victory at Epsom this year and what have you.
And in terms of Steve Dennis's piece tomorrow with the owner of Ask, where is that at now in terms of its position?
Well, he's been a busy bee this week. He's been on literally on this road trip and really on the treadmill. So he's going from one to the next day by day and filing almost live as he's going to these places. So he's a little bit late. It's 2:30 now. Normally it would be much earlier than this, but we cut him a bit of slack this week because it is such a busy week for him. He's really sort of on a roller coaster this week and working very hard. So we'll hope to see that in the next 20 minutes or so and turn it around quickly.
And when in the next 20 minutes it arrives, what's your specific role with it?
When it arrives on an email, and I'll have to fish that off. He'll probably put in a call to say it's there.
Yeah.
I'll get it off the email, take a look through it. Steve is a very, very clean writer, very talented writer, so there should be very little for me to do at that stage, but I'll take a quick spin through it, give that 15 or 20 minutes. Then what I'll do is I'll make it available to the guys over there that are drawing the pages.
On the subs desk.
Yeah, on the subs desk. They'll draw the pages. In Steve, we're very fortunate to have a genuine photojournalist, so he's taking the camera with him. The pictures are already with the picture desk, so it should all come together quite nicely. And hopefully by 5 o'clock the page will be in the editor's office and he'll be giving it a big tick and we can send it to the printers.
Which is what you want.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Mark, they're explaining how Steve Dennis is supplying his own picture for the feature tomorrow. That picture will be looked after by John Kettle, who today is overseeing the picture desk. And JK, when Steve sends in that picture, where do you get it and what do you do with it?
Well, in this particular case, Steve Dennis has emailed the pictures into us, and so I just detach them from the email, download them to a browser, which you can see here. And if I just enlarge that, that's one of the pictures that he's taken of Pat Fahey. And basically the simple fact is that I just then drag it across to a browser, and a little letter appears there for features, and they're the two pictures he sent over. And then the subs choose them. They've got access to this browser. They fit them onto their pages and order them from us electronically, and we crop them to the right size that they've requested, and they put them in the page. It's as simple as that for this in this particular case.